I'm humbled here to be standing in this place this evening as the new member for the Northern Metropolitan region. It is a solemn responsibility and a privilege I do not take lightly. I'm deeply grateful to the people of the North who have entrusted me with this office. The northern suburbs are in my blood. My mother and father, David and Jenny, actually met while working together at the old Collingwood City Council. My late grandfather, on my father's side, also David, was a local businessman and a rabbiter in Northcote. On my mother's side, my late nonna and nonno, Teresa and Domenico Caruso, arrived in Australia in the 1950s with nothing and started a life for themselves and their family in Melbourne's north, in Brunswick and then in Reservoir. Their life story, which is now my own life story, is one of familiarity to many constituents in the northern suburbs. But it really goes to show the promise of the North, that you can go from one generation arriving in Australia with nothing but a suitcase to the next generation and having their grandson represent our glorious multicultural community in the Victorian Parliament. I owe so much to their hopes, their dreams and their sacrifices. The north of Melbourne and indeed Victoria owes so much to the contribution of migrants just like my nonni. As a tribute to them, I do hope to amplify the voices of migrant families in our multicultural community in the north and fight for them in this place. And now I'll be working to ensure the next generation of Victorians can secure the great Australian dream wherever they may come from. As a new member for the Northern Metropolitan region, I'm also aware of my perspective and my responsibility as a millennial MP to the challenges faced by my demographic. One of the most critical of these is the crisis around housing affordability. For young people in the north, as well as across Victoria, it is the single biggest issue. Young people in this state are increasingly abandoning the hope of ever buying a home. The current unattainable nature of the housing market for many, is particularly my generation, is not the circumstances under which you're going to feel confident to start a family or take a risk investing in your own business. It's popular for those addicted to jargon to talk about a demographic cliff, but what we're currently facing is an economic cliff stemming from our housing crisis. The birth rate in Victoria is the lowest in the country at 1.48 children per woman. This means a growing share of ageing Victorians that need to be cared for by a diminishing generation of taxpayers. As our party's founder, Robert Menzies, said once in one of his famous radio addresses on the 22nd of May, 1942, "Your advanced socialist may rave against private property even while he acquires it. But one of the best instincts in us is that which induces us to have a little piece of earth with a house and a garden which is ours, to which we can withdraw, in which we can be among friends, into which no stranger may come against our will." Renting leaves young Victorians without a stake in their community. It's been claimed by some in this parliament that young people are happy to rent. This is out of touch and does not reflect the aspirational nature of young Victorians. I believe it is immoral that large sections of our inner cities, flush with good transport, schools, healthcare and other infrastructure, remain almost flat, with obsolete overlays denying young Victorians a chance to buy their first home where they want to live. If my party wants to remain relevant to young people, we must at every opportunity reject this short-sighted and unfair approach and champion home ownership. This does not mean concrete jungles of apartment towers everywhere. It means that it is in our economic and moral imperative to champion policies that lead to the building of homes in which my generation can start a family and lay down roots. It means more medium density for infrastructure-rich middle suburbs. NIMBYs, not in my backyard elites, mostly from the inner city, are often the first to call for more migrants into Australia. And as someone who backs a big Australia, I think that's a noble cause worth championing. But these same privileged elite are always the first to demonise and oppose any proposal for sensible development that will house in a humanitarian way the very families they want to bring into Australia. At the sight at the first sight of any sensible proposal for medium density, protesters with green triangle placards swoop in quicker than a seagull to a chip on St Kilda Beach. To put it plainly, these green-tinged councils and political elite are the new xenophobes. While these do-gooders and hand-wringers might think they're fighting a holy war against evil property developers, all they end up doing is sending young families packing to growth areas like Mickleham, Beveridge and Wallen. These suburbs in my electorate are where infrastructure, schools, healthcare and amenities are already a decade behind growth, and the cost of building new infrastructure is enormous. I hope to fight for these communities every day while in this place. The answer is not centralist socialist nirvana of government-mandated affordable housing owned by corporate, industry super and big government. The answer is, and has always been, more supply. Those of a socialist bent may find this concept difficult to understand, yet it's been proven over centuries. Build more of something, make it cheaper. Build less, make it rare and more expensive. We have to do all we can to stop young Victorians in our migrant community from becoming an assetless generation. When we consider other opportunities we can provide to bolster vulnerable communities, I believe the Liberal Party must take back ownership of the conservative value of redemption. In an age where incarceration rates are rising, it's time to appeal to our better selves and the human good in people, exploring innovative ways to combat the root causes of crime. In our criminal justice system, it's time to take a different approach and differentiate between those that we are afraid of with those that we are just mad at. We can and must prioritise community safety and also find alternative punishments for people who should not be in prison. For non-violent offenders, I believe Victorians would rather spend a nominal amount at the start of someone's interaction with the justice system than spend $120,000 a year every year to keep them in prison. This is a proposition that makes sound economic sense, but more importantly, a better outcome for society. I applaud the efforts of many corrections officers and community correctional staff doing their best to stop reoffenders from reoffending. Yet we know once someone has been in prison, it is very difficult for them to leave. 43.6% of prisoners released during 2018-19 in Victoria were returned to prison within just 2 years. Many cannot find a job once they leave prison and end up back there, costing taxpayers millions over a lifetime. This recidivism disproportionately affects already vulnerable communities like First Nations people and those experiencing poor health and poverty. There is a way we can provide Victorians with a second chance in life and also save taxpayers millions of dollars. Low-level drug possession, defaulting on fines, and even some white-collar crime should not be valid reasons for Victorians going to prison. We should be looking at successful criminal justice reform efforts, largely in Republican states in the US, like Texas and Georgia, where they have prioritised community safety, given people a second chance at life through alternative punishment and work programs, keeping people out of prison for good, and received a fiscal dividend by being able to close prisons rather than open new ones. As criminal justice reformer and Republican Representative Jerry Maiden has said, Democrats tend to focus on changing lives. Republicans, such as him, tend to focus on saving money and cutting taxes, and so started a bipartisan reform effort. As he said, I'm a conservative politician who says, let's save taxpayers some money, but if I can change things so crime goes in a different direction, then I can in fact change lives. If I could do that at the same time as saving money and spending smarter, wouldn't that be a great thing? The legacy of the reform effort in Texas has been one of closing down 10 separate prisons in the past decade, and the prison population has dropped by 17,000, saving the taxpayer millions and millions of dollars. The same principles can be applied in Victoria, and I firmly believe there are good human qualities to every Victorian, even those that have followed the wrong path at times. We should seek out the good in our fellow Victorians and always find a pathway to redemption. If this makes me a dangerous radical, I'm proud to wear the label, Mr. President. We must and can do better. While on the theme of redemption and second chances, The intolerance created by cancel culture in this country, particularly in Victoria, is highly disturbing. We have reached a point where merely holding an alternative view or being loosely associated with the views of others in some way can see you, your family, your career, or anything or anyone you've been involved with heavily targeted by an angry mob. When someone is targeted for their faith, views, or comments, we are creating a culture where offence is completely subjective. Those who accuse my side of politics of waging a culture war are often the first to push for laws that will make unlawful all speech that might offend someone, somewhere. Freedom of speech is the most important freedom we have. Without it, we lose the ability to argue and defend all freedoms. In this again, I quote the founder of our great party, Sir Robert Menzies, who said in his policy speech on November 10, 1949, there may be some people who think that the only freedom that counts is to have a roof to sleep under, clothes to wear, food to eat, but they are not real freedoms at all. Each can be obtained under utter slavery. The real freedoms are to worship, to think, to speak, to choose, to be ambitious, to be independent, to be industrious, to acquire skill, and to seek reward. These are the real freedoms, for these are of the essence of the nature of man, and socialism will have none of them. Safe spaces and trigger warnings seemed a laughable campus fad a decade ago. Now they've wormed their way into our boardrooms, institutions, and more concerningly, our laws. Anti-vilification laws, like the ones brought to this place in the last term, should never again see the light of day. Laws on speech with ridiculously low thresholds, like being likely to cause offence, should be consigned to the dustbin of history. In terms of cancel culture, subjective laws on speech will lead us to a point of no return. Never again should we see one side of politics met with a heckler's veto charged for a police presence to a protest caused by the other side of politics. And never again should we see pregnant women arrested in front of their family for Facebook comments. For me, standing in this place makes me an even stronger advocate for freedom of speech. And now I'm ready to fight a different culture war. Our side of politics should stand up for the future of the arts sector and the important contribution this sector makes. As someone who's been heavily involved in the amateur theatre scene, Mr. President, on stage and off, and was president of a performing arts company in Melbourne's north, I can state from personal experience that community arts organisations are in crisis. Amateur theatre companies in the north have either closed or are on their knees. Grassroots organisations like Arc Theatre are the lifeblood of communities, providing joy and meaningful social interaction to so many people, particularly young Victorians. While the political class rolls out the pork barrel to sporting clubs, community arts organisations are not even getting the crumbs off the table. This is not to dismiss the important role that community sporting clubs play, but community arts organisations create a form of entertainment and community involvement that is a step beyond the extra additional bain-marie for the local cricket club. It's about time government policy reflected this. Too often in the arts, government gives precious taxpayer dollars to organisations that already have large philanthropic departments. We need to do better to support culture at a grassroots level. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge some people who helped me get to this place. To Matthew Guy, you gave me my first job in politics when I was a young uni student. I was inspired to follow the path to politics through your energy, enthusiasm and love for our state. I'm proud to follow you into this place as another fellow former La Trobe Liberal Club president and a fellow Saint supporter too. I've said this to you before, but it's true. I would likely not be standing in this place were it not for you. To another old boss of mine who unfortunately can't be here, the former Senator, the Honourable Mitch Fifield. While he left a great legacy in the Senate of voluntary student unionism, disability and aged care reform and media reform, Mitch's real legacy was unseen. And while our opponents have the union movement and a plethora of activist organisations to train up the next generation of leaders, in some respect my side only have our members of parliament. And Mitch used his time in the Senate to recruit and mentor the next generation of leaders into his office. Mr President, I was a beneficiary of his guidance and wise counsel, and the fact that many former Fifield staff are now leaders in business, public policy and a growing number even in our parliament is a testament to Mitch's enthusiasm to support the next generation of leadership and a benchmark I hope to follow. I'd like to acknowledge and thank John Roscombe, one of the great intellectual leaders of our time. Thank you for your support and guidance to me throughout my 6 years at the Institute of Public Affairs. Thank you also to IPA Chairman, the Honourable Rod Kemp, Janet Albrechtsen and Jeff Hone for the support they've given me. While some people think the answer to our public policy problems is to get more IPA members into Parliament, in some respect, I think the answer is establishing and nurturing more organisations like the IPA who so strongly set the terms of debate and guide public policy in a more sensible direction. It is said that if you want a friend in politics, get a dog. Thankfully, this is not the case for me. Firstly, to my friend Senator James Paterson, who unfortunately cannot be here today, thank you for your friendship and support to me for over a decade. If I can make half the contribution you're already making in the Senate, I will be a happy man. And it's such a thrill to be joining in this place at the same time as my good friend in the other place, the member for Kew, Jess Wilson. It feels like yesterday I was your loyal Vice President when you were President of the Victorian Young Liberals. I can't wait to see the brilliant contribution you'll make in the other place for the people of Kew and for Victoria. To my friend Michael O'Brien, the member for Mulholland in the other place, it's great to have another Marcelin old boy in the Victorian Parliament. And thanks also to my friend in the other place, the member for Sandringham, Brad Rouswell, for your support, guidance and wise counsel. There are great friends I have no doubt I would not be here without, and I can't name them all, but I would like to particularly acknowledge Mark Bryers, Max Williams, Aaron Lane, Stuart Eaton, Claire Chandler, James Wilcox, Andrew Hudson, Adam McKee, Gemma Whiting, James Duncan, Simon Breeny, Gideon Rosner, Luke Tobin, Deborah Henderson, Byron Hodgkinson and Lydia Patterson. To the countless Liberal Party volunteers, thank you for putting your faith in me. Your dedication makes me proud to be a Liberal. There are too many people to thank individually, but I'd like to particularly thank Northern Metro Regional Electorate Council Chair Stuart McCraith and long-time party servants Jen Hamilton, Scott Pearce, Gemma Townsend, Jackie Douglas and Con Francescos for guiding me on my journey in the party to this place. Finally, I'd like to thank my family. To my mum Jenny, your 16 years of service on Banyule City Council showed me the value of public service. Hopefully I've inherited your stubborn Calabrian drive to achieve outcomes for your community. To my father David, you were well ahead of your time as a stay-at-home dad, working from home in your small businesses so you could support us and watch us grow up. Thank you both for your endless support for me. I'd like to acknowledge my siblings. If you see someone walking around who looks like me with a visitor's pass, that is actually my identical twin brother Alex, and also to my brother and my sister Olivia. As siblings often do, you formed my character from the earliest of days and my ability to hold my own in a dinner table debate. You also brought wonderful people into our family like Sophie and Sidel, as well as a growing multitude of nieces and nephews who are so special, including Isla and Lockie, who are here today. To my chief advisor and wife, Bridget Meany, a political brain who would make a formidable member of Parliament in her own right, should she ever take that path. Since we first met in the halls of Federal Parliament many years ago, you've made my life a joy. I do not take for granted the sacrifices you've made so that I can be here. I love you so much. To my son Ted, who at only 2, we didn't trust to bring into the chamber today, and my very, very soon to arrive daughter. It is your future that will drive my efforts every day that I'm an elected representative. I thought I came from a big family as one of 4 until I married Bridget, who is one of 9. So to all my in-laws, led by Chris and Mary Claire, 2 people of profound strength and commitment, each brother and sister-in-law, their partners and children who have made our lives so much richer, I felt like I've had an enormous cheer squad of encouragement and prayers every step of the way on my path to public service. I would like to thank the good people of the North for electing me to this place. I will lead, listen and learn with you. In parting, my one helpful suggestion, Mr President, to my friends in the Labor Party. Seats in the north are no longer yours to carve up to out-of-area factional picks who do not look or sound like the communities they represent. As you may have seen in the trends at this recent election, there's every likelihood that these seats won't be so safe anymore as a result, should you continue down this path. I will be making sure of this. I'm so proud of the team of candidates the Liberal Party fielded in the northern suburbs. Their experiences, diversity and commitment to their communities were incredible. I'm under no illusions that I'm here with a swing towards the Liberal Party, thanks to your hard work. I'm not remotely content being in opposition. I'm hungry for government, and Victorians are relying on the Liberal Party to be strong, to reform, to challenge and to be accountable. And that's exactly what I'm here to do. Thank you.